health issues, or if they have children with underlying health issues, then they're given flexible working arrangements. And so that, but mostly people are back to work, things are back to normal. However, this week in Ireland, the numbers are going way up again with the past month, and the government have started to ask people again to work from home. So I think in the next few weeks, we're going to see a lot of people going back to pod systems and working from home again, wherever possible.
Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, and with women, I wouldn't say that a lot of women have left the Defence Forces because of COVID. I think they were given very flexible work arrangements. Say, for instance, me, during the pandemic, there was no schools open, and at times no childcare open. So I would have been allowed to finish work early and stuff like that. So, families were given flexible work arrangements. It was probably mostly women who requested flexible work arrangements for childcare arrangements, but in some instances, men as well. But yeah, they would have been given a lot of flexibility by the Defence Forces.
Okay, I have 2 questions, and then if people have questions, is your military required to be vaccinated? Because that's happened here in the US.
No, there's not mandatory vaccination, as far as I know. Majella, do you know any more about that?
No, there's no mandatory vaccination, but for example, on some missions, part of the Defence Forces, they have air ambulance missions, and the crew have to be vaccinated. So if they're not vaccinated, they're just not part of the mission, but they don't have mandatory vaccination. You're just put into another role.
Okay, because that's a difference. The other question I had for you both is about childcare. Is that an issue for you at all? Obviously, it's a major issue here in the US, but I just wondered, is that an issue for you all, and why women are not going back to work at all?
So for us here, like during the lockdown, all of the childcare would have been closed as well. So, but everyone was working from home and all the schools were closed. But once the schools reopened, childcare would have reopened then as well with that, for the most part. So there might be some shortages and some reductions, but most people are able to get childcare.
Okay.
And so they are going back to work.
Okay. Now, how about questions from any of you to both Sinead and Majella? Any questions about Ireland or what you're thinking? Dennis, what are you doing? Okay, I want to ask you. I want to ask you something? Okay. Can you ask these people to? You can ask them. What? Okay. All right. No questions?
So, Dale, just to say as well, I suppose during the pandemic, that with the serving members of the Defence Forces, they were often deployed into like the COVID centres, the vaccination centres, the testing centres, and the isolation centres to work there. So a lot of them would have been tasked with doing that. So, and in emergency planning as well. So, yeah, it was a busy time.
Okay, thank you both very much. Okay.
Thanks.
I had a brief question. I'm sorry I was late. I was tied up in another meeting, but I was really interested what I heard about what's happening in Ireland. I just wonder, and you'll hear a little bit more from someone from the US shortly, but I mean, we do have to deal with all these anti-vaxxers and anti-vaxxers and affecting the workplace. And I just wondered, I don't know. Maybe you've already spoken about it, but I don't know.
No, we haven't. That's a good question. That's a great question. Do you have that problem?
There are certainly people who would be anti-vaccination, and sometimes there's protests. But I would say in the workplace, certainly in the Defence Forces anyway, what my experience has been is that people don't really voice their opinions one way or the other loudly. Like, people just accept people are going to do what they want to do, and so there isn't a big vibe like that in the Defence Forces, certainly not in the naval base. Majella, would you have found that in the Defence Forces?
I think in the military, they're so used to being told what to do because it's a hierarchical system, and it's a command and control, ethos. So I think they're very compliant. That would be my
Okay.
experience. It would be the same as Sinead. Yeah, that I haven't heard that, but in wider society, yeah, you would get some all right. You know, I have a colleague who works in a hospice and she doesn't want to get vaccinated, and she's working with vulnerable people.
Wow.
And yeah, but what she didn't have any pressure to be vaccinated. Nobody forced her to be vaccinated or anything like that. But she's coming under a little bit of pressure now with the numbers increasing again to be vaccinated, and they're talking about her working from home until the cases decrease.
Good. Okay.
Yeah, but
Thank
she's
you.
not being forced to do it. There's no mandatory vaccination. Yeah.
Okay.
Are they going to pay her when she works at home?
Yeah, yeah, they can't. We've no, we have no laws around. You know, people are free not. I've heard other European countries talking about bringing in mandatory vaccination, but it hasn't happened here. And people tend not to vocalize whether they're vaccinated or not, because the majority of people in Ireland are vaccinated. We have over 90% of the adult population are actually vaccinated. So people are, I think, are afraid to say they're not vaccinated. Would that be your experience, Sinead?
Yeah, Magella, I definitely agree with that. I think people just don't say if they're not vaccinated, they stay quiet about it.
Okay, but they're not necessarily asking for proof of that where you go places. For example, in New York City, to go to eat at a restaurant, you have to show your evidence of vaccination. We don't here in Boston, but New York is very.
You
heavy
have to
with
show that.
That's right.
We
No,
have to
you
show
don't. You have
that
to show it
in
the restaurant.
restaurants.
You do have to
The,
show
yeah,
it.
we have to show the vaccination cert. If it's indoors, if
To
it's
eat in a
outdoors, you don't
restaurant.
have to, but indoors you do.
Oh, good.
Yeah,
Okay.
and to
All
go
right.
into a pub.
That's
Yeah,
that's a
Yeah.
big, that's an interesting one. Okay, we could stay here all day. Let me move on. I'm sorry.
know.
Thank you so much. It was great.
Thank
Reed, where are
No
you?
problem.
Where,
That's fine.
Hello, Prof.
Okay.
This is Jacob.
Can you put your video on? Reed, are you going to give us now about Palestine? Hello?
Prof, this is
Hello,
Jacob.
please again.
What? Hello?
Hello, this is
Hello,
Jacob.
I'm with you.
You're with me? Are you going to tell us about Palestine now?
Yes. Thank you very much for the invitation and for this workshop. I hope you are all doing. Here in Palestine, really it's a complicated life. We try to live as much as possible because we have many problems here. It's social and economic problems and occupation and the pandemic in the last GDP decreasing by 21%, and unemployment rates rise to 36% in the West Bank. So this is, I talk about the West Bank without Gaza because I don't have any statistics about Gaza now, you know, because this is the, we haven't daily communicate with Gaza Strip. This is in general. So only in a small number of workers we able to work remotely in the occupied Palestinian territories. 1,039, approximately 11% of the workers, most of who work in the education sector and the non-governmental institutions. So we have in pandemic, we have experience in Palestine, or good experience, I think that in Palestine, because in the last year, we faced the pandemic, and we make, as for example, the intervention approach about how we can work with the family or the children or the young under this situation or under pandemic COVID-19. So this is in general. So, but want to talk with you about the woman here in Palestine. So the corona pandemic affected many working women, and that they left their jobs to take care of the family or the children and home. Despite the lack of specific statistics showing the percentage, more importantly, domestic violence is one of the repercussions of the corona pandemic on the woman. As director, this is as the director for the United Nations Women's Office in West Bank and Gaza said. So there is good about the fixation in this time or before 3 months, 4 months. There is good demand for vaccination against the coronavirus in Palestine, which helps to restore working in the situation in its normal form in this time. This is good, yani, for the institution. Many people, they go to the working, for the school, for the university, institution, for the Palestinian National Authority or the international institution or NGOs. This is in general, but really, where is the difficult issues here in Palestine? We have a problem, as you know, because the Palestinian people is under the occupation, the Israeli occupation. So this is not help to us through the 70 years of occupation. And since the early 1997, social workers have communicate with many families or many children or many young that have suffered from the ravages of the occupation, and through social organization, including secret and public, in providing assistance and raising the moral of the Palestinian through publications to mobilize and enhance to the occupation. Where is this rule formed a formula and social concepts that strengthen the Palestinian struggle for freedom and independence? The new, for example, social media, internet technologists, and wireless phone are a new mechanism, the social workers. In general, here in Palestine, we have a problem. For example, the economic situation is very bad here. Many things is more expensive. Many things many youth or woman, he cannot find the job in West Bank and in Jerusalem. This is the in general. For in the next, for any question I can answer.
Okay, thank you very, very much. What comments or questions do people might have for Aid about this? Oh, I'd like to know what's your incidence right now of the virus? Is it going up? Is it getting better, or where is it now in Palestine?
Now it's better. Now it's better now in Palestine because the many people go to take the vaccination. This is very good. The percentage, when we talk about now how many people affected the coronavirus before the last year, it's better now. We have a little bit for the pandemic, and the Palestinian National Authority really, and the Palestinian Union and other organizations take care for many things. But the other problems here, whereas many people in Palestine working in the Israel, so they go to through payment, go to the Israel to work. So this is workers, he haven't cared for many times the Israel arrested the children or the workers, right. And he have many difficult issues, not issues. For example, it's many difficult situation in the prisoners. For example, I am sorry about this. Before 2 weeks, the Israel soldier arrested for my uncle, not my uncle, my son, for the brother. So he came in the home in the midnight without masks, without anything, and he يعني the procedure, it's very bad. So this is the examples for it's يعني the Israel or soldiers make it for the many Palestinian people in West Bank and Jerusalem. So this is affected for the family, affected for the, or in increase for the virus. Palestinian National Authority trying all the time to يعني to care about this and to make money issues or money decisions to care for the Palestinian in West Bank and Gaza.
Okay, all right. Are there other questions for Raid? Okay, thank you so much.
You are welcome.
Good, thank you so much for doing this. Okay, I'm going to move on to Mark Attridge now with the US, Mark. And I see Dave Levine is right there too. So Dave, you could chime in. Okay, good to see you. Okay, go ahead, Mark.
Okay, yeah, this is Mark Attridge in Minneapolis, and the comment about, how's it going in the United States is, of course, a very big country with a lot of complicated issues. I'm in Minnesota, which is one of the highest educated, highest healthcare states in the country, and we have the highest incidence of death, and 100% of our hospitals in the state are full of people with COVID. So if you get in a car accident or you have a heart attack or you have something else, you have to wait for 2 days to get service now, even though we have really excellent healthcare here. And that's because we have a major political problem in the US that's causing most of these problems. If you live in a big metro area like I do that has 2 million people, most people are vaccinated, 70, 85%, depending where you live. If you go 10 miles out of town and you live in a small town or in rural areas that get propaganda radio, have all this made up stuff, you don't get vaccinated and you don't wear masks. And so we're really a divided country. And the problem is the people that aren't vaccinated now, even though they're, a third of people, they're the ones filling up all the hospitals. 99% of the people in the hospitals are unvaccinated. And so it's mainly just a giant political problem that's not based on science. And it's very difficult to resolve. And it's very difficult for the workplaces to do things. Many workplaces are requiring masks, requiring vaccinations, but it's not a mandate that's federal yet. It's supposed to happen in January for federal contractors to be vaccinated and certain companies that work with the federal government. But the states have a lot of fighting between the two political parties about what is appropriate to wear masks or vaccinations. And for instance, in my state, in Minnesota, the opposing party stripped the governor of his right to declare this a medical emergency as a pandemic. And so even though our rate of hospitalization now, or rate of having COVID is 10%, 1 in 10 Minnesotans has COVID now. It was at 5% before when we declared a pandemic. But because of political issues, they are actually going to fire the health director in our state because she wants to save people's lives and require people to wear masks and get vaccinated. So it's kind of crazy land here in the US, and it's really harming businesses because they don't have the political courage to all say, if you shop at this business, you need to be a vaccinated customer. If you work for this business, you need to be vaccinated. Some businesses do it, some don't. And because we're such a giant country, it creates a lot of instability from one employer to another, especially when some have employees in one state that has a certain regulation, and in other states, they have different regulations. So it's really challenging for employers to try to respond to this. And many, employer companies are owned by the political party that doesn't believe in masks and vaccinations. And so a lot of leadership at many companies is contributing to the problem, whereas others are trying to help. So the political civil war here in the US is really causing a problem for employers and employees to deal with the pandemic in a scientific way. And it's just very frustrating for a lot of people. And especially when the science is so clear about all these things. I don't know if others in the US want to comment, but that's what
I think you really phrased it perfectly. And I'd like to hear from some of the others from the US from different states. Dave, where are you? Where'd you go?
Well, I'm pleased to add in. Mostly I came to this seminar to keep Mark honest in his comments to the rest of you, but I actually moved, I was living in the community close to Mark in metropolitan Minneapolis, St. Paul area, and moved during COVID, moved to northern Minnesota with my wife. And the discipline is different up here. I go to a retailer, I go to a Target or a Costco in the Twin Cities, and the mask discipline is pretty good. But I go to the same retail outlets in northern Minnesota, and you rarely see a mask.
Okay,
I think there is a silver lining with COVID in that it is increased the awareness and recognition of behavioral health issues. Whereas before, Republican or Democrat leadership was looking for evidence of the effectiveness of EAPs and social work in the workplace, like productivity and absenteeism, impact on healthcare costs and engagement. And now it's right on the table. They're looking for, what are we doing about depression, anxiety, stress? How folks are adjusting to COVID? So there is a silver lining, but the politics that Mark summarized well, and I know it's not unique to the US, but those politics are rampant in the US and divisive in the US.
right.
It's a real challenge in I'm sort of a glass half full perspective, but it's challenging to see our way through these political divisions.
Good. I wonder, Elaine, since you're in New York, which is in some ways the exact opposite in the way they're really enforcing this, do you want to describe what it's like in New York?
Okay. Well, we have a pretty good vaccination, record. I think we're about 81 in New York City. It's compared to, I think, around in the 50s in the country as a whole. We're pretty liberal, at least. Because that's at least, I don't know, the circles that I travel with. But there are some even among us, but they're often very silent. But if you kind of call them out, sometimes you can even find them like, all of us liberals, there's some person who's a little reluctant, and hasn't been vaccinated. All restaurants, all public events, the plays are opening up again. Concerts and all, people have to show proof of vaccination.
That's what, excuse me, I want to interrupt you because I think that's very important. In New York, you have to show proof of vaccination if you go to the theater, if you go to a restaurant. In Massachusetts, we do not.
Yeah, and I always hear
the states are so different. In other words, there's no requirement for that in Massachusetts, which is a very, very liberal state. But compared to what I understand, New York is really much more advanced and ahead on it.
And a lot of people are really down on our current mayor, de Blasio, for really pushing and enforcing them. And as it was said before, with I guess with Mark, beginning with Mark, it's so politicized, in the United States, and it really shows its disastrous, effect in terms of and it's a free country, and so anti-vaxxers, are real strong, and they have a demonstration. There's also an effort to have employees, public employees, be vaccinated. And this is also, there's a lot of upsetment about this, and especially in public. And as you can imagine, a place like New York City, we have a lot of public employees. I mean, the police department, the sanitation, and I mean, the downside is,
Are they requiring it?
Yes. Yeah, and like there's more garbage on the streets that haven't been picked up because they have this policy, you have to be vaccinated, and some people have refused, so they are short.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Dale?
Yes.
She mentioned the police. One of the interesting research facts coming out is that of the different industries and occupations in America, one of the highest groups of employees that refuse to get vaccinated or wear masks are police because of their political affiliation. And they come into contact with a lot of people, go into people's homes. And there's quite a large share of police in most major cities that they've done these surveys that refuse to get vaccinated, and many even refuse to wear a mask when they're at work.
Okay, thank you.
Um,
I want to, good. I
oh.
want to ask anybody else from the US from another state. Anybody here from Florida? Gary, anybody else from the US?
I'm from North Carolina, and
where are you? Oh, okay, go ahead.
Gary up here, and the other Gary with
Okay.
double R's.
I know, I got a couple of you. Okay,
We're both from North Carolina,
okay.
and I think we should be called the divided states of America instead of the United States of America,
Okay.
because we certainly,
point.
even here, we have a county that's unmasked, no proof of vaccination. I'm in an area, my wife and I, she's a dentist, and we're in the same building, and we have to be masked in our building, and we show our vaccination cards. But in the surrounding county, Guilford County, which is Greensboro, you have to be masked. The entire county has a mandate, and you go to concerts and everybody's masked. They want you. So it's very different. Just living within a 10-mile difference is very different. Gary, do you want to say anything else, or is that pretty much, I think everyone else has summed up the US, which is the DS.
That's right. Yeah, I think that's true. That's the biggest thing I think that we're seeing. Okay, how about
Hello,
John
Prof.
Mary?
Hello,
Where
Prof.
are you?
This is Jacob. This is Jacob from Nigeria.
Who?
Jacob from Nigeria.
Okay, Jacob,
He's asking for a question.
go ahead. You asked a question?
Yes, I've not made my presentation.
What?
I've not made my presentation. Should I make my presentation
Yeah.
about Nigerian situation on the pandemic?
I'm sorry,
He wants to know if he should start his presentation now. I
His
guess the people, yeah, his presentation. I guess the people have finished talking about what's happening in the
Yes.
United States. He's the next, right?
Go ahead. Yes, go ahead, Jacob.
Okay, I'm from Nigeria, as you all know. So I work with the civil service, the federal civil service in Nigeria. And most ministry, department, and agencies in Nigeria adopted remote working. The pandemic forced a worldwide experience where many more people had to work from home. COVID-19 accelerated new working and workplace models, therefore resulting in an increased overall flexibility. The speed with which digital collaboration has been adopted by organizations in Nigeria has been remarkable. In majority of cases, results exceeded expectation. Remote working does not necessarily mean that all employees work from home. It will organize in such a way that employees work partially from home and partially at the office. Remote working has spread rapidly as a result of technology. Some jobs that would never have been true of has been done remotely, have been able to maintain operation effectively. The advantages of remote working include there has been reduction of transportation, the better productivity and better time management. Then there is a balance between family and work associated with a potential for greater happiness. An increased feeling of protection and security regarding the potential effects of the pandemic. The opportunity to access talent without geographical boundaries. Implement of new processes aligned with remote work and strengthen corporate culture. I want to suggest that all hands must be on desk to ensure that the future workplace is more digital, less hierarchical, and more flexible, complying with the health, safety, and technological conditions required by the evolution of COVID-19 pandemic. The world is currently becoming a global village. Thus, there is need for synergy and collaborative effort to ensure all countries, including Nigeria, have a secure workplace. So thank you for listening.
Thank you. Thank you for what you've offered us. Jacob, can you talk a little bit about women and what's happening in Nigeria with the women and COVID?
Yeah, Nigerian have relaxed the lockdown considerably. Many people has come back to work. And I work with Federal Ministry of Women Affairs. And there's equal opportunity for everybody. Although some categories of workers are still at home, they are still working at home remotely, like the junior staff. But every workers in Nigeria, including women and children, 70% of them are back to work with precautions, using face masks and so on and so forth.
Oh, okay. Anybody have questions, other questions for Jacob about Nigeria? All right, thank you. Now I think we have John Mary. Where are you? John Mary, I see you're here. Hello?
There he is.
Where?
I'm
Oh,
on.
there you are. There you go.
Yes,
Go ahead.
yes, I can hear you. I greet you and thanks so much for putting this together. My name is John Mary. I'm the coordinator of the National Association of Social Workers of Uganda. We have been at the front line of fighting COVID-19 and responding in quarantine centers, but also in increasing systems so that we promote resilience of families, of children and communities. A report on this of our work has been published on International Federation of Social Work website. I'm calling upon all of you to go there and see what we have been doing in detail. Since 2020, we have been working closely with the Ministry of Health, Ministry of Gender, and as a professional body to guide and dispel on myths, fear, and stigma among the population. Am I clear? Is my voice clear? Can I know from you, Messi?
Yeah, go ahead. You're doing fine. Are you there?
Hello?
Yeah, yes, we can hear you.
We can hear you.
Yes.
What? Hello?
Okay, so I was requested to talk about the situation in Uganda. Yes, I was requested to talk about the situation in Uganda. I'm requesting people who have who are talking to mute their mics. Please, can you mute your mics? Yes. So the situation in Uganda, in relation to what is happening, one, for example, all primary schools and secondary schools are still closed. This means that all workers who work in primary schools and secondary schools since 18th March 2020 up to now are not working. Also, the industry, what we call creative industry, that includes music, art, creative art, and bars and casinos, all have been closed since 2020 March up to now. The implication is there are thousands and millions of people who work around this industry called creative art, including bar attendants, most of them being women, including people who cook food around these cinema halls, including people who sell drinks. All of them have been rendered unemployment since the beginning of COVID. The other issue is that public gatherings in Uganda, like churches and mosques, they are allowed, but with limitations of about up to a maximum of 200 people, but with strict observance of standard operating procedures. What it means that you can have a function of about 20 people, but with a maximum of 200 people. There is strict observance of both in the public and private workplaces, that is in offices, in NGO world and the public, private sector. There are people who are working, but they are allowed to have capacity in all offices. Transport industry, these are buses and taxis that transport people, are also allowed that have capacity across the country, which means that there are a lot of regulations around formal and informal workplaces. However, when you look at Uganda, Uganda is largely an informal country with a majority of people working in informal sector, like women in the markets. There are also regulations to observe COVID-19 regulations. However, many people have become unemployed in these sectors because there was a lot of laying off of workers because of COVID in formal settings, but also many people lost businesses because they ate their capital, the small capital.
Okay. I think it's very important coming from
Because we are
social.
just having information, which is just like in sports, on what we are saying. There is no national survey to know how COVID-19 has affected workplaces across the country. And this would
Okay. How about some questions?
So what I was concluding with that
Go ahead.
there is no particular, yes, please.
Yeah.
There is no research which has been done in these areas, for example, to see, to ascertain which is the number which is affected between women, between men, between formal and informal sector. And this is National Association of Social Workers would to do research in, to do a national survey. If there are any friend of ours on this call who is interested maybe to partner with us to do that research and findings our presence across the country, to carry out research and know in the terms of real time the real effect. Thanks very much. On the call, I have also one of my workmates, Ben Sebum, is
Okay. What?
in Uganda. So
Ben?
we thank you for the opportunity you have given us to share.
That's all right.
Know what is happening here in Uganda. Thank you.
Thank you. Ben, did you want to say something? Ben? I think he's on mute. Is he?
He might not be there right now.
Oh, okay. Well, John Mary, I have an important I think it's important. A question about social work. And what about IFSW? Are you involved at all? Are they providing any kind of leadership from the international arena for social workers as far as COVID? Have there been any, I haven't seen as a member, I don't think, maybe I'm wrong, but you all now get the newsletters for IFSW if you're members. What is IFSW doing on an international level for all of us as far as COVID and social workers? Elaine, you're our representative from the US, but what about other countries? Have you gotten any directions at all, John Mary, about this?
Well, we have an upcoming meeting of, of the reps, of the IFSW reps from different countries around the world. And maybe I can even post that, and I'll talk to, Priska, who is kind of like our, our main rep. She's in Switzerland. I thought I saw something in the newsletter, about IFSW and COVID, and the different countries where we are. But I don't know. I'll look again. If I can find it, I'll put it in the chat. Okay. To share with us.
Well, I realize that. I'm just wondering though, what about a resolution from all of us to IFSW saying, could we have some direction as far as worldwide with social work and the pandemic and policy issues? And, where is the profession internationally about what we're saying? Have we come out, for example, with policies internationally as far as believing in masks or believing, for example, in certain things? I'm wondering, is it just me, or have any of you seen any direction from IFSW in this manner? What about, what would be your thoughts? This just came off the top of my head as you were, as you were speaking, John Mary. What about I'm happy to write, if you all are interested, to IFSW asking for some policy questions from social workers, encouraging social workers as policy around the world in this whole issue of pandemic and what we should be doing and all of this. Any thoughts on that?
I think it'd be great if you write a letter to IFSW about it. And definitely I'm going to have it on the front burner, and I will also try to inquire and share with our email list of what I can find. I was just gonna say, a challenge is, we're real different, and countries are maybe in different places, and IFSW reps are in different places. I like to think that everyone is kind of like a liberal, like I am, and that many of the people from the US who were talking today are, people who are pro vaccination, pro mask.
I wasn't really asking for, that as much as even some direction or encouragement to social workers who are out there working every day with people with COVID, as far as worldwide, some kind of policy or encouragement or something coming from the international on this area. What do you all think? Are you with me?
In Ireland, we have the Irish Association of Social Workers.
Right.
So we're part of IFSW. And during the pandemic, we had a survey to all social workers. And the survey was to collect information about their experiences. Where were they finding difficulties? What was working well? What wasn't working well? And we collated all that information and we sent it out to all of the members. And then we also ran what we call talk time. So talk time was held every week, and it was social workers who it might be about 14 or 16 social workers on a call, and they talked about their experience of working through the pandemic, shared information, knowledge. It was really a support, I suppose, to social workers.
Majella,
that stopped now.
Majella, that reminds me, Pat Herlihy can tell us the employee assistance group in the US meets as a professional group. But I'm wondering, the idea of writing and saying, what about worldwide with this, providing these kinds of, support. Where'd you go? She disappeared on me. Majella, could you send me the things that you did in Ireland? That would be helpful if I prepare something. I might, why don't I try to prepare something about what we're thinking about? I need your thoughts though. What would you like to see IFSW provide, as far as, particularly as far as the workplace, because that's our interest. We're not just out there for all kinds, but we're here as far as for social workers working particularly with the workplace and what we might like to see coming. That would be really helpful for me. Do you think any of you with the ideas with this? And then I can consider circulating a letter before I send it. I could circulate it to you all, for your comments.
I think what would be,
I think
what would be brilliant is papers. If anybody's written any papers, I know in the UK, there's been a lot of articles written about working with clients during the pandemic. So if the IFSW had any information about papers of experiences of other countries, I think
Pat,
that
are
would
you
be
there?
useful.
That's right. Pat, are you there? Pat
Yeah,
Hurley?
yeah, I'd love to jump in on that question. I'm sorry, I lost your name, Irish lady. But anyway, there are papers. Jody Fry and I have built this International Employee Assistance Archive, and there are wonderful papers in there. I'll put the link up on the chat. There are wonderful papers in there, particularly the two that I think of is Dan Hughes, who's at Mount Sinai. Elaine, you might know Dan. He's written an incredible paper about how Mount Sinai dealt with COVID, a huge health organization. There's another one from Mark Hyde, who's the Cleveland Clinic. So, the archive is a great source if you're looking for papers. We would love more on the international scene. We have some from Laurie Treblanc, University of Pretoria has some papers in there. We've got a few from Nigeria, actually. But we'd love some more from Ireland, to be honest with you, and Palestine. So please check out the archive to see what's in there that might help you. And then likewise, what you might be able to add to that so that all of us can have access to.
I think Pat, could you spell out or let them know how to get to the archive?
Yep, I will.
I'll put it in the chat.
What?
Yeah, that would be great. And I do a lot of work with Mount Sinai. In fact, I run a joint MSW.
Would you, Pat, do you want to, can you at least let people know?
She's gonna put it in the chat.
All right, put it in the
That's
chat
great.
box. Okay? Will you put it in? Okay.
I will. And Dale, I'll put my email in there. And so anyone who wants to know more about the archive, I'm glad to hop on a
All right.
call.
I'd
and talk
love
with
to
them about it.
connect.
That's fine. But I want to be sure that, let's get back to IFSW and what we might want to see from them. Please send me any thoughts you might have for what they might be able to provide for all social workers, or, not just particular ones, and each, and what direction related to the workplace. Can I?
Hey, Dale.
Go ahead, Mark.
I actually did a big survey this summer along with the Employee Assistance Association, mainly US, but some other people participated, from professionals in the field and also people that were representing whole EAP businesses, vendors and internal programs like Dan Hughes' program at Mount Sinai and others. And I've given a number of presentations on the results that are in the archive that Pat Hurley was talking about. So I can put those links in there. Or if you there's a whole COVID section of the archive, you can just search things for my name. And there's a couple, I gave a talk to internal EAP groups and to external EAP vendors and to business people. I gave 4 talks on it. But I think the International Social Work Group could use my survey that's already developed and produced and change it slightly to the social work context if they wanted to jumpstart their own survey of what is going on with the pandemic in terms of the use of services and the use of organizations, how they feel about social workers and how social workers themselves feel about providing the services. Because I asked around those 3 themes from the EAP psychology perspective and got a lot of very interesting results that we're writing a number of papers with. So I'm happy to share that tool if they wanted to adapt it for their own survey that they could send out to the membership rather easily.
Can you?
Great idea.
You want to send it? I know I read your page. Matter of fact, I have it, Mark. But yes, you want to send that to me, and let me just see. But I do think that IFSW has a role for all of us to kind of bring us all together, and not, because we've got obviously either by country or by state or whatever that's going on here. So I mean, I think what we're going to ask for is leadership in the whole area of the workplace. I think it'd also be good to bring the attention of the workplace group to IFSW, because obviously, we're really the unique piece for them. I mean, as far as being identified with the workplace. So, we're a little neophyte group limping, coming along here, but I'll see what I can do. And please send me your thoughts and ideas, because I don't want to put my, get myself in trouble with what I'm gonna write. So I need your thoughts and ideas, okay? I
Yeah,
think,
that's great. That's great. I'm sure I mean, you can express well, what we're interested in. And then looking at, trying to look and see what I had from my IFSW, there are reports from different countries. And I think there's something, for example, from Ireland, and there's something from South Korea and all, but it's really nothing except they did something about kind of ethical issues in COVID back in 2020, but nothing appears. And so this would be great. And also, I think, Mark, you talked about the study you did. I mean, this would be really probably very interesting information to know more about like what's going on here. But I think we were really important for coming up for IFSW to weigh in, because certainly now as people are starting to return to the workplace, post-COVID, hopefully. I mean, what does that mean? And where is IFSW in all this?
that's great. Okay, Elaine, I'll be in touch with you about it, okay? Good, because you are the social work rep too. All right, I think we're moving towards the end of our time. This has been great, at least as far as I'm concerned, really informative. And please, when you have thoughts and ideas, please contact me, will you? Because I'm, we're doing this, and here we are, and the group is growing. And so we'll now move on with IFSW. I want to wish you all happy holidays, and and we'll be in touch. We'll hold another call probably the end of January. But in the meantime, I will be in touch about what we're going to do with IFSW and awareness about bringing the workplace to their attention. Are there any other comments anybody wants to make before I close this?
Just thanks, Dale. This has been a great call. I feel like I've traveled the world.
Thank you.
and-
Thank you all for who participated, all our speakers, and it's great to see you all. Okay?
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Fine.
Okay, don't.
Bye-bye.
Here, just click it.